please mention a guiding figure in your life.
Yeah, it's not one person, it's my parents. For the qualities they bring to the table, for what they've done for me and my family, for never giving up. Yeah, they're certainly the folks that I look up to the most, and the folks that I think about when things get really hard. And yeah, nothing could be really more difficult than that. So, suck it up. Let's go.
Olá, sejam muito bem-vindos de volta a mais uma Conversa com Propósito. Eu sou André Caldeira, sócio-fundador e CEO do Grupo PROPOSITO e host desse podcast. E esse é mais um episódio com um entrevistado em inglês. So, without further ado, I'll switch to English right away and introduce my very special guest today. Vibol Hou, former CTO and CPO at Paramount Streaming. Vibol, be really welcome to my podcast, Conversas com Propósito, or in today's case, Conversations with Purpose.
André, thanks for having me. It's really great to be on.
It's an honor, as I told you. So, I recently met Vibol at a boot camp in Santa Fe, New Mexico, together with a group of leaders led by Jerry Colonna, who has also been my guest here at the podcast. When Vibol and I started chatting and he began telling me his story, I immediately thought about bringing him as a guest, and here we are today. Vibol is a genocide refugee from Cambodia whose family fled the war. He was born in a refugee camp on the Thai border, and the family was later placed in Long Beach, California, by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in the early 80s. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Cognitive Science from the University of California in San Diego, with a specialization in human-computer interaction, and has built a career in the digital media arena with experience in several companies until joining Pluto TV in 2014 as CTO, where he helped build a massive, successful streaming business that was acquired by Viacom, today Paramount Global, in 2019. Early this year, 2026, he decided to leave Paramount. Vibol is married to Tara and has two beautiful kids, Seha and Devi. And in his free time, he enjoys training for a marathon, getting out on the road or trails for a bike ride, and playing badminton. He also likes reading about new ideas and innovations across a wide range of interests, including space, science, medicine, and technology. As I said before, Vibol, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
So, we always start our episodes with the same question. Please share a moment, a part of your personal history that was fundamental to help define who you are today. But in your case, I would like to direct the question. Please tell me about what you learned from your parents while in Cambodia and your arrival in the US as a family. What was it like arriving in a foreign country? What are the main learnings you hold from such an impactful experience?
Yeah, it's a story I haven't shared very much, probably more so with my team, I've worked very closely with in the 12 years that I was with Pluto and Paramount. It's obviously deeply personal. And as you'd mentioned, my family is a family of refugees. We fled the war that went on from 1975 to 1979. In fact, just a few days ago was what we call Remembrance Day. It's the way the war happened, it didn't have a clear end to it. There are many of us that became refugees and were relocated like my family was. But on April 17th, 1975, that's when the what we call the Khmer Kahom, the Khmer Rouge, marched into capital city of Cambodia, Phnom Penh, and that's when practically everyone lost everything. For my family, that began roughly a 4-year struggle to make our way out of the country, as it was I think many folks who read about Cambodia, they hear about the killing fields, and that really is what happened. So my family, went from village to village, making our way initially to the Vietnam border, but we were turned away
Mhm.
because they weren't accepting
Mm.
refugees at that time, and we made our way up to the Thai side. So that's on completely different ends of the country. Um, 4 years later, 1979, we made it. Uh, everyone who had left initially with my parents, my four siblings, made it to the what we call Camp Khao Dang. That's the name of the refugee camp on the border, and that's where I was born.
Hmm.
My mom had carried me through, some of the jungles of Cambodia in order to get to the camp, and I was born there. After which, as you had mentioned, the UNHCR, who does tremendous work, and still does to this day, relocated us to Long Beach, California. So, when we arrived, we had our papers, we had our clothes, and that's about it. Right? As refugees, we didn't have much else. Maybe we did have a couple of photographs that were taken at the camp. We didn't have many photographs at all from our home, as we had fled so quickly. Um, but we made it out here, into new country, new environment. Didn't know the language. Right? All of us, my folks, my siblings, all spoke Cambodian and speak English. So, um, my siblings enrolled in school. We all learned the language. I was just a toddler, so I was really growing up fresh and in America. Um, and I'd say my family and I are tremendously grateful for the community around us, the church groups that supported us, other Cambodian refugees. We'd form assistance groups to help each other, support each other in that time of change, and tremendously grateful to them, to the country for being a place of refuge, right, that we could find ourselves again and start over. I remember, in transitioning. I was just following what my parents were doing, right? So I
Mhm.
remember notably a time when I was just following my mom around. She was actually, going through the trash cans looking for cans and bottles to recycle to make
Mm.
money, as we didn't have jobs. Uh, the skills that we had in Cambodia weren't immediately um, usable here. So we had to do what we could to make our way through. But over time, we found our way, right? I think one of the things I'd say, what did I learn from that, from what my family had gone through, what my parents had gone through. And I think I said something like this in our boot camp. Um, there, given what we've been through, I'd say for myself, there are really very few struggles in my life, in my personal life, that can scale to the level that my family endured. Certainly, just working their way through, struggling, surviving those killing fields. I I learned um, in my late teens. It wasn't until later, as I'd grown up. My siblings and my parents shielded me mostly from all of this knowledge until I was perhaps old
Mhm.
enough to really know, or honestly, I think to when they felt really comfortable, like telling the
Mhm.
stories, as it was so traumatic.
Yeah.
Um, but what I learned later on was that, um, I have 17 siblings and half siblings.
17.
Yeah. So brothers and sisters, half brothers, half sisters. 12 of us survived. And I learned that quite a bit later. Particularly, I'd say, and maybe this is something we talk about. I took some time to pull together my family tree, and it wasn't really, and that was like a couple years ago, and I didn't really understand the scale of devastation until then. And that's when I learned, like 12 of us of 17 survived. Also learned, um, coming here that when I say we lost everything, we were like a upper middle class family. We had several homes around the country. So we went from that to absolutely nothing. Right?
Mm.
I say that's another learning that I took away. I didn't experience that, but my siblings and my parents did. So it's really hard to fathom, right? Like for me, it's something to look to and say, like, okay, there's really not a lot here that's that much of a struggle, even through the most difficult challenges that I've gone through. So I'd say these experiences, like, the optimism that my siblings, my parents had here, and not kind of masking all that devastation from me early on, so I can have um, a different life here. And that's something that I truly appreciate, and it helped to kind of form for me, like, this idea of grit and perseverance to
Mhm.
make it through, to push through, um, to do what I could to do my best, right? To overcome the struggles that we all have in our lives.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Vivo. It's such an impactful story and experience. While preparing to interview you, I was actually researching on what happened in Cambodia. 25% of the population
Yeah,
died, and it's unimaginable. Uh, but I I wanted to ask you about your parents. Are they still alive? And what kind of characteristics you see in them? Because they had to be really, really strong to put up with all that, and losing 5 kids and bringing 12 to a new country with nothing but the family and some papers, as you said.
yeah, yeah. They're gratefully they're both still with us. Um, my
Oh,
dad's in his mid 90s. My mom's in late
huh.
80s, right? So they are quite old.
What a blessing.
Yeah, yeah. My family and I saw them yesterday, so
Huh.
we spend a lot of time, as much as we can, right, given the times and given their age. Um, I think, both my parents, like, were so foundational in our entire family. Right? They're the core, the rocks of the family. Uh, when we got here, my father had some skills from his
Hmm.
old work. He used to work with printing presses.
Hmm.
He had led a newspaper in Cambodia, and so he was able to come here, and some of those skills translated because there's still printing presses here. This was
Hmm.
right the early '80s, and we didn't have digital printers or anything like that. So everything was still bound and printed on books and distributed. So he was able to do that work, which he did to support us. Um, it was a single kind of income family, so, of course, my mom would stay home to raise all of us, right? There's still quite
Yeah,
a few.
which is a lot of
Yeah,
work.
yeah. I remember, we grew up in a small, 900 square foot, two-bedroom apartment, and it was, uh, how many was it? 2, 3. three of my siblings, and then two of my nephews, and then myself. And there's like 6, 7 of us living in a cramped apartment. And it was my mom that made us breakfast, made us lunch, made us dinner, made sure we got to where we needed to go, school, all of the things. Right. And so, I mean, that's just pure grit, love, perseverance, right? All the things that great, I think great parents, great moms do for their families. And they still do that to this day. My parents, they still buy things for the kids now. We'll go visit. We'll come back with bags of fruits and vegetables and other things that they encourage us to give to the kids. So I think.
How many grandchildren?
Oh my goodness, I can't even count.
I can imagine the size of the family with the grandchildren.
Yes, it's enormous. It's a huge family tree. Yeah. But just to say that they're the cornerstones of the family, right? Like they taught us extremely well. They're incredibly humble, right? Like I say, they didn't really talk about the past. Like they always looked to the future, and they always encouraged us to study, to be good, and all the things that I think parents want us to be. But they reinforced that with their own actions, right? The things that they did to care for us and teach us how to be. And I see a lot of that even in myself, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, preparing to interview you, I read that you were always a curious kid. How has curiosity helped you become who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in poverty. I'm not gonna lie, right? Like we grew up in the system. America has something called welfare, and we relied on that growing up. So, but that also um, didn't. We had subsistence. We were able to live. We were able to eat and go to school. I went to public school. So, but we didn't have a lot. And so, what I learned early on was, we see the other kids that have things that we don't, and we couldn't get them. My parents, they did their best, but these things were optional, right? Toys, games, other things. So that left me with my imagination, right? Like you just make the things that you could make with what you got, and early on that, just for me, it just created this kind of loop, this cycle of curiosity. I was always wanting the thing that someone else had to go make it myself, or at least imagine that it was just as good. Right. And so that, I think that engendered kind of an early interest in all manners of things. And I think it's also become one of the most important skills that I have, is just taking in all that information from anywhere. Like I've met a lot of folks in my time, and I think people have their interests, but they don't really engage until it's very interesting to them, right? Like I think for me, I look at the world broadly and just say, oh, these are all interesting things. I have this insatiable curiosity about kind of all the things, and I think over time, what that's done for me is just I've been able to look at all kinds of things around me with an eye towards just possibility, right? And so I think that's a very powerful trait. Certainly one that served me well through all this time. Um, I'd say when you go from like looking at having just a small team of a couple of people and having to work your way up, right, to continue to build and build and build, not necessarily with the knowledge of how to do that, is I think a lot of entrepreneurs like have this kind of trait, is like you figure it out. Right? You take that problem in front of you. You ask the questions about it, the things that curiosity, like that trait, brings to mind. How does it work? How does it fit together? Like, where does it go? What's possible with this? Right? Like those kind of questions come to mind naturally, and it really does lend itself to I think uh, being able to see things that others otherwise wouldn't be able to see. And so it's been terrific being able to really leverage that curiosity and all the things that I do, and all the conversations that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't help but think that scarcity has been a teacher for possibility,
Uh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
To imagination, curiosity, looking from a different perspective, which is something that really strikes me as key in your personality, in your life story, your family's life
Yeah,
story.
yeah. I do think scarcity
And
is a tremendous driver of innovation. I know that. I
mm,
see that, and I've seen that, experienced it
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and in your life, as you just told us. And what is really amazing to me is that you come from this background of genocide refugee to winning an Emmy in technology and engineer actually twice. So during the Pluto initial phase, you were told by industry experts and prospective partners that it wouldn't work because Pluto was a fast business. I learned so much by studying about you and your business. So Pluto was a fast business, free ad supported streaming television, a different model from Netflix, let's say, which is subscription based. So I wanted to ask you, what were the effects you felt inside yourself with all those outside doubts? Because people will tell you, no, this is not going to work. And then later, what was it like for you to receive such recognition as an Emmy with your team?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think as we had spoken about earlier, I think growing up, I've never really given in to the doubts around me. I think it's
Hmm.
just kind of like, I think curiosity helps a lot with that. Is that
Yeah.
kind of a mindset? Like, it asks a question about the doubt itself. Like, is that as it challenges the question, the doubt, and it helps open up um, doors when you start to be able to look at the problem as not a challenge to oneself, but right, a uh, kind of like an exploration into the boundaries of the doubt, right? So I think I don't see a lot of doubt around me as doubt. Like, I see it as problems to be solved,
Hmm.
right? And so um, from an early age, I was always very confident in my ability to figure things out. And so the doubt was more of a, let's see if we can do it.
Uh-huh.
It turned into that kind of a question for me. Um, and the other thing about where I come from is, I think I look at everything from a kind of like technology perspective, because that's where I
Mm.
grew up from. So that you have the business people are the ones that had the doubt, right? It's like, oh, it's this business. It's an old business. It's old over the air television. Like, that stuff's going out. It's all about the SVOD. It's all about these subscription services,
Mhm.
and that's what we saw. We saw hundreds of subscription services come up and then fail
Mhm.
because they couldn't find buyers,
Mm.
right? They couldn't find subscribers. Um, we definitely had our technological challenges. If anything, like, you know, for the folks that doubted the business model, I think it would have been more effective for them to look at the technology and say, well, the tech just can't do it, which was very true.
Mhm.
The tech didn't exist to do what we wanted to do at that scale. Um, but given all of that, um, I think my interest in tech and in solving problems using technology was where I approached the problem solving from. I
Mhm.
felt like if we could crack the code, as it were, with going from what is otherwise technologies. This was what, 12 years ago. So it's a long time ago. You had YouTube, you had Netflix. There was a suite of devices, Roku, others coming out, focused on playing these episodic content, and oftentimes um, not with advertising interwoven in between the content.
Uh-huh.
There's pre rolls. Everyone knew what pre rolls were, but no one really did mid roll advertising. That was just not a common
Uh-huh.
method. But Pluto TV is 24/7, always on, always streaming, essentially like over the air type programming. And so that was the struggle of the technology. It wasn't able to play content 24 hours a day, like the existing technology, anyways. Then neither was it able to weave these advertising together so that one could monetize and make a business out of it. So
Mhm.
I saw that as the taller challenge, not the business side. Is like everyone enjoys free content. YouTube proved that,
Yeah.
right? Like so we knew there was a place for free television length content, but the technology was very difficult to overcome. We went through at least 4 or 5 different iterations of approaches from solving the problem on the client side, which are like the apps, and doing the weaving of the content within the apps, to what we ended up developing and winning the Emmy for, which is a server side um, method of stitching together all that content and delivering it to the applications for playback. Um, I remember a moment in Pluto's history. So Tom Ryan is Pluto's CEO and my boss. We were just chatting, and mentioned to me, and I didn't think about it this way. I never did. But there's a major inflection point in Pluto's history. We
Mm.
needed to move away from a certain kind of technological model to a different one, right? From that client side to the
Mhm.
server side method. And we were having so much trouble. We were trying to make this work on the Roku sticks, and our playback was crashing after half an hour. And we weren't,
Mhm.
like, they had a very specific way they wanted to integrate the advertising, and that wasn't working very well. And so, and then when we were in I think a point in time where we were looking to raise our next round, and so we had the pressure of running, like, capital's running out, and we need to get to that next raise. And if this didn't work, right, if this didn't work, it would be the end of it. And of course, I'm heads down, like, just working. I didn't know all of this. Tom, like, later shared, like, all of this interesting kind of business side of the story when and I'm just focused on tech. And to me, that's just a tech problem. That's straightforward. Let's just keep iterating on it. Let's just keep chipping away at these problems, and eventually we figured it out. Um, but as I was kind of in my mindset, okay, technical problems, 1, 2, 3, right? Like, just go through it methodically to solve. Over here in the business room, everyone's just sweating bullets. Like, is this gonna work? Are we gonna make it? Are we gonna get there? Right? And I
Uh-huh.
didn't learn until later that, like, it was such a defining moment in the company history. But I was kind of like, all right, I think that's the way I see, like, the difference between kind of the business struggle, the naysayers out there, and saying whether or not the business model will work, versus, like, the technology aspect, which I always feel like, yeah, you can do anything with technology. You can solve any kind of problem. Well, there are certain ones that we can't solve, but we get into that later. It has to do with people.
Yeah. But do you think your personal background makes you look at challenges from a different perspective?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's both a good thing and a bad thing. Um,
In what way?
well, it's bad because technology doesn't always, like, in this example, technology doesn't always consider the business ramifications.
Uh-huh.
In this case, the businesses could succeed or not succeed based on the success of the technology.
Mhm.
So I think if anything, like it's important to have a broader view, right,
Mhm.
than just that focus on tech.
Mhm. Right. And then for 12 years, you helped build Pluto TV and later Paramount Plus from scratch. From a team of 2 engineers to thousands in your team, from local to global, from a startup to an important M&A deal. So, what are your key takeaways from this ride, which you decided to leave in January this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually gave this quite a bit of thought, and I had written up a little kind of farewell slash summary of my learnings post on LinkedIn on my profile.
Mhm.
Uh,
I read that.
yeah, and so we can hit on each of these, but I'll kind of summarize the high level. One, systems thinking is super critical in uh, being able to scale up. Right? It's important to be able to take an idea and reproduce that idea consistently. Right? It's just systems thinking enables that in the sense that systems is comprised of a bunch of process and capability, and making that repeatable is super important. That applies to technology. It applies to business operations. It applies to people management, like all aspects of business. So the more someone can take a step back and look at the totality of what's going on, and to identify the systems at play, and then to be able to look at that and say, is this efficient, inefficient, or efficient? Could it be better? Like, these are super
Uh-huh.
important to scaling. And something, I think, when businesses are growing really quickly, like we went from 10 people to 50 to 100 to 500, like within the span of a couple of years, right? And so that kind of
Mhm.
growth and scale, um, in hindsight, I look back and say, yeah, we should have done a lot better job at putting some systems in place for certain areas of the
Oh,
business, like systems to scale the culture, for example.
oh.
And that we don't often think about it, because in small companies, we just do what we do, and it's easy to have conversations with a few other people. But when that becomes a few dozen
Mhm.
people and then a few hundred people,
Yeah.
like the things that you once relied on, which is just the high level of communication and space, right, like between a few folks, suddenly has to
Uh-huh.
multiply by hundreds, thousands, and not having um, the right systems in place makes that a very difficult um, aspect to grow and scale. Um, Say another that I'd probably take from, like, Netflix's old culture pitch deck, is
Mm.
culture. Or it's not culture, but context.
Mhm.
Context and understanding is really important. Um, and many of the companies that I once worked at, I'd say it wasn't always obvious what we were doing and why we were doing the things we were doing, and we just had
Mhm.
our tasks to accomplish and get them done. But I think for um, building highly successful scaled organizations, it's important to constantly reiterate the context. Make sure the teams understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, so they can Right? Self-direct a little bit, not just take the orders, right? And then that leads to this idea about like investing in the culture, and that's when everyone in the team knows like the expectations of them, how to operate and how to work with each other, um, and knows how to like perpetuate that through exercising those good qualities. That's when I'd say a company can really take off. Uh, it doesn't matter what the idea is, frankly. Like having the right people with the right mindset around the table solving a problem. That's probably one of the most like important aspects of any organization, and that starts with the leader. Um, the leader is the culture, like in a lot of places, like the way they carry themselves, the way they interact with their people. That just everyone tries to mimic the leader in a way, and that's just what it becomes, right? The culture becomes what the leader is doing. So it's very important to be mindful as a leader. Um, uh, you know, Iterating quickly is really important. Try things out. Try them small. Fail fast. Like if they don't work, like learn that they don't work quickly and move on. There's only so much time, especially in the startup world. There's really only so much time to be able to get something right before you run out of money. So that's a practice, I'd say. Like it doesn't make sense to try to make the perfect thing if you're going to run out of runway and can't really do anything after that, right? Um, at a certain scale, building and trusting your team is vital. Build a team you can trust, and then trust that team, right? To build.
Exactly.
That's super important. What else for the person, the leader? I'd say constant situational awareness. Right? Have all your data feeds plugged in, and when I say data feeds, I mean health of the team, all the roadmaps and the timelines, what your competitors are doing, right? Like all the movements that have to do with the thing that you're focused on building. That's probably the biggest struggle, but building, again, going back to systems thinking, building the systems around oneself to be able to take in all of that information or have access to all that information is, I think, critical. Um,
Did you ever feel overwhelmed by the size, the scaling up, like from a few engineers to thousands of people, and you were the leader?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And what did you do to take care of yourself?
Well, when I say build and trust your team, I don't mean just like the teams of engineers. I mean also the team around you, right? So I built a team around me to help, I'd say, like systematize the flow of it. Because once you get into like, when you go from a leader of two people, which is just conversational, okay, here's what we're doing tomorrow, like that's easy, to let's say dozens to hundreds of teams. Now you have to kind of work with leaders, right? You're a leader of leaders now. Um, there has to be process to be able to scale the information flow, right? But then the feedback loop, in an ideal system, the people that you've kind of brought on or you've trained and coached to become the leads of these teams, they become self-directed. And so then the leader starts to think more about the strategies and kind of like the bigger scale items. And that's where the context and understanding becomes important. Then the leaders that you bring on board are able to easily grasp the overall direction, the strategy, and then the more specific kind of problems to solve for the strategic approaches, right? So I'd say until I had my system in place. I was doing all my note taking myself. I was scheduling for my right. I didn't have an assistant until
Yeah.
year 9,
Uh-huh.
right? Year 8 or 9 of my tenure at Pluto Paramount. So I'd done all of the knowledge graphing myself. But
Mhm.
you know, I obviously quickly learned that was not a scalable thing, and I started to build a small team around me to help with all of the intake and processing um, and the activation or the execution of these ideas around me. So yeah, it's and I think it's uh, uh, going from 2 to 1,000 along the way. The mix and the balance of information flow to what I'm doing changes. So where I was mostly hands on with the smaller teams, by kind of year 12, it was mostly strategic and high level
Right.
kind of operating. But one of the things that I'd say that's still important is like the information, the feed, what we call our feedback loops. Uh, I
Mhm.
still spend a lot of time with all of my team members. I do things like hold office hours every month, just to be able to sit down with everyone down to right the individual contributor, just to listen, and talk about like answer questions that they had, talk about things that were on their mind, and that was helpful for me, right, to be able to hear and see. Uh, and I mean, some of these conversations got pretty difficult, right, admittedly, like. But I think as in kind of my role as a leader, I felt like it was important to be there. Right? It comes from my upbringing in a sense. It's just like doesn't matter how difficult things get, family's always there, right? And they're there to listen. They're there to kind of help you try to figure out your way. But they're always there, and I think the same applies for teams and certainly leaders of teams.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Yeah.
In your opinion, are there traps in success or in the so-called hero mode? Is it challenging to stay grounded when things start to scale up? When, the project starts to roll out and, you get more and more clients and society tends to look at you like, these guys are
Mm.
making it.
Yeah. It's easy to.
And I ask from, the ego perspective.
Yeah. I think it's quite easy to get tunnel vision when you're on
Mhm.
a roll. Right? Is it like it's working? You're gonna keep repeating that. Um, for individual leaders, I think there's also this kind of struggle of believing that your way is the right way, and that leads to
Mhm.
you ignoring others' ideas. And I think that's a trap. It keeps the door closed for rapid learning and iteration, innovation, even particularly innovation, right?
Mhm.
But I also think it's just as bad. There's a hero mode and there's this kind of like fully democratized mode. I also think that's bad.
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
Is that it can lead to indecision, like gridlock.
Right.
Now so many cooks in the kitchen, you can't make a decision. So that's
Yeah.
also bad. Um, but while scaling, I think the thing that we struggled with, at least I struggled with the most, was like um, things are working a certain way as they are, and that's a
Mhm.
and you kind of fall into this complacency that says, "Well, that's it's working. Why change it? Why fix it?
Mm.
It's my idea. I came up with it. It's working just fine. Someone else comes in. We think it can be better. Oh, why fix that?" But that's a little bit of a catch because from what I've learned, my experience is everything can always be better. Like, it's just different states of scale and maturity. but I think to actively, try to keep people or teams, especially ones that are thinking about that next step, from doing or trying those next steps, I think that's a bad thing for teams. And hero mode tends to do that. It tends to squash those ideas, right? So that's a pretty big trap. Um, but yeah, I mean, as things scale up, you lose signal. Communications gets more difficult. Culture gets a little bit watered down, and the processes start to fail and falter. Um, uh, so it's a little bit of a struggle, but there's a way that I like to think about it, and I share this with my teams. It's like I use this analogy of playing in a band together, like
Mm.
making music together, right?
Mhm.
Everyone knows good music when they hear it. I think that's like we just kind of know it. Um,
Right.
and then, like in the band, each member brings their respective skills to the table, and they're all there to make music. We all know we're there to make music, right? So you start with a riff, right? Scale, a verse, a chord, and then others start to add to it, and then they give each other immediate feedback. All right, let's try that again. Let's rerun that one. Let's okay. Do that slightly differently. I think I hear this. It sounds great, right? So this feedback is very immediate. Um, but seldom is it like in these jam sessions. No, you're doing the wrong thing. That just throws a wrench in the entire
Yeah.
dynamic, right? Like you just don't see that when people are jamming together. They just keep on trying, right? And then eventually you make good music together. But it's a very organic way of operating, and I think like hero mode has it's pretty caustic to that kind of environment.
Right.
So that's just something that maybe is a guiding idea to think about is like, is my team making music with me? Am I music with my
Mhm.
team? Are we jamming? Right? Are we
Mhm.
constantly at each other's, like, disagreeing with each other and not really making progress?
Yeah. Right. Collaboration in the proper essence, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And what are the most important skills of a good leader, in your opinion? And also the main traps a leader has to avoid or overcome?
Mm. There's so many things I could say, about this. One of the things we did with our team from the culture side was try to define a set of, um, values. We called it our culture code.
Mhm.
Um, and what we tried to do was articulate just the way we wanted to be with each other. But I also think that those qualities, which I'll kind of riff out in a moment here, are the same ones that I think a great leader has.
Mm.
And so there's five things. Um, the first one we talked about quite a bit is just curiosity about everything. A great leader is constantly curious about everything, and in a way
Mhm.
that encourages everyone around them. Right, not asking like super critical questions, but curious questions about what's going on, what their people are doing. Is it? I think that both expresses interest, but also gives um, someone that's doing hard work and just a moment to be able to talk about their work. Or to feel heard, feel seen. I think that's important. The second quality code is we call it this hunger to solve problems. So a good
Mm.
leader is always in the back of their mind, just constantly looking at all these problems, thinking about how they could be solved, thinking about who can solve them, right? So whether it's delegating the thing to be solved or just coming up with the solution oneself, there's always like that clock wheel turning. Um, the third is uh, simply care for others. being a good listener, being empathetic, taking in the struggle, the understanding of what it is someone else is going through is
Mhm.
vital. Is that to me that helps to feed what are those problems to solve. And so a great leader will look at all the problems that their teams are dealing with and work to remove those problems so that their team members can do their best work. It's quite
Mhm.
right. It's quite easy to think about it that way. We talked about iterating. Small, start small. Always try small things out. Yeah, I think it's a struggle if a leader comes to their team and says, "I want to do this big multi-year thing." Where when the
Yeah.
time scale of most ideas in companies right now are actually in quarters, if not months.
Right. Right.
Right, so that's huge investment for potential huge loss. And so a good leader
Uh-huh.
knows how to break up these problems to test small things out quickly and learn from and take those ideas forward. And then, of course, underpinning all of this is this idea of innovating in everything we do. Right? So if we're looking with curiosity across the spectrum of things that are in front of us, and we're looking at all of the problems and what they mean to how we're
Mhm.
moving as an organization, as a team, and then we use that to prioritize where we change, and that change, right, that process of identifying, evaluating, prioritizing, and then solving, that's innovation.
Mhm.
And a lot of folks forget to innovate in areas that are actually important, but which is why we say like innovate in everything we do is just to look at the full spread of struggles in front of us and say like, okay, like what are the things that can help me scale? Right?
Uh-huh.
Automation's a big one, which uh, honestly, like I'd say businesses tend not to do as much of. Right? Taking this thing that we have something repeating on constantly and automating that, like that doesn't happen as much in business as it really needs to. So that's
Mhm.
the everything we do, like the support functions that we have that enable us not to have to think about that thing, so we can think about more critical, right, strategic items. That's innovation, super important. Um, how would I translate all that? Listen, analyze, actively, right, active problem solving, have deep empathy for teammates, for people around you, for customers. Um, have a deep propensity to try things out, encourage the people around you. This, hey, let's try it out. This small thing, let's see if it sticks. Take that little learning, that little win, build it bigger, and just keep on iterating on it.
Mhm.
And then, you know, the most, I'd say, crucial trait of any leader is always thinking about the next steps. Even when your teams are working on the current step, right? Like think several steps ahead. What are the possibilities? What can happen in this full spectrum of things that I'm curious about? And I think those are things that those are kind of like the traits, the values that we try to live by as a team, but I also think
Uh-huh.
as a leader is um, yeah, tremendously important. And of course, what traps to avoid, um, indecision. That's where the iterating small helps, right? Like do it fast, try
Yeah.
it out,
Yeah.
try it fast. Just being able to be in the mode of trying something out quickly is super helpful to fix the indecision. Delegating for too long. Sometimes you actually have to step in as a leader and say, okay, okay, what are the things we've learned? Here's where we got to go. This is right,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
letting the teams run for too far and wide for too long. We got to focus, and so I think that's an easy trap to fall into as a leader. Like, the team's got it. We come back a couple quarters later, we don't have it. uh, and then from I don't know which philosopher, maybe it was Sun Tzu, know thy
Ye
enemy.
Mhm.
And here, like, if we talk about curiosity and the way that I talk about it,
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say the enemy is everything. right? But knowing everything as much as possible, having that contextual awareness of it as much as one can have is um, something that I see a lot of leaders that don't do that. Right? Being able to,
That's very, very true. Very
yeah,
true.
yeah. So that's a huge trap, and I don't know. I hear it a lot, and I even folks I speak with, my team members. We tend to get super focused on the thing in front of us that we forget to take that step back as leaders and look at the big picture.
Which goes back to humility, to being humble,
Mhm. Yeah,
to being curious, right?
yeah,
To learning from everybody,
yeah.
from new situations.
Hmm. That's right. That's right. Yeah, humility and hero mode are not, they tend not to be compatible with each other.
Right. Right. Uh, and then can you please share about your running and exercise habits? Did you always practice running? And
No.
what are the main learnings on training for
Oh
marathon?
goodness, that's a very new development for me. Honestly,
Huh? How long ago did you start?
actually it was probably about the same time this last year. So I'd say maybe
Oh, really?
March, April of last year, I started to exercise. Prior to that, I'd always been a very sedentary, work at the computer, um, every day, essentially without very
Hmm.
much exercise. And tell you a quick story. The thing that got me into that, the
Hmm.
most notable thing, besides the fact that I felt like I was having more and more trouble getting in and out of the car. Uh,
Was it that bad?
it was that bad. Yeah, I
Really?
was just trying to get in the
Uh-huh.
car, and my knees are feeling pretty weak. It just got worse and worse. So once you hit 40, things go downhill pretty fast. But
Uh-huh.
I was getting down to give my daughter a piggyback ride to lift her on my shoulder and pick her up,
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't get up.
Oh my God.
I was having so much trouble getting up. I had to prop myself with my arm and push myself up, and it's like, wow, is this really what I want the rest of life to be like? And I still got my kids and their futures to support, and so it was a moment of just realization that no, this I've been so successful in other parts of my life. Like this cannot be the place where I
Uh-huh.
fail. And so I decided to start exercising, and I started playing a sport that I really loved to play, badminton. That was awful on my knees. I remember
Uh-huh.
playing my first game, and I wasn't able to walk for 2 weeks after that. I really debated whether I wanted to keep going, but the struggle is real. I knew what I wanted to do, and I kept going. Eventually, I learned that I didn't have enough endurance playing badminton. That's what,
Mm.
right, both strength and endurance, and then that got me to starting to run. Um, but I didn't run at first. I started walking as I could barely run down the block.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
can run down the block
Mhm.
without my knees killing me. So I started walk, runs, and did that for 6 weeks, and then I built all the way up to running for 5 minutes nonstop. And then from that point, I decided, okay, I should probably set a goal. Right. So then
Mhm.
I'll run a marathon. That's the goal. And I started training up.
And when was the first one?
The first half marathon was what they call it, the Surf City Half Marathon here in Huntington Beach. Um,
Uh-huh.
Beautiful course, just right along the Pacific Coast Highway. Um, yeah, that one was rather challenging because I decided to do it um, at a point where honestly I hadn't thought to do it yet. I just figured this is a good
Uh-huh.
time. Um, I was supposed to run the 5K in that event with my son. He fell ill just a couple days before, so he couldn't run it. So when I went to register and pick up the bib, I just decided to, okay, let me just do the half marathon. I feel like I'm ready. And so I ran that half marathon, and I ran his 5K as well because that was right after.
Oh.
But yeah, so running is a very recent endeavor. I wouldn't say that in my life, I enjoyed sports, but I was not a runner. That was the thing I loathed doing the most. But I just felt, with my exiting the company, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take. The thing I want to do after leaving was just take some time off to work on health, family, and all those things, which I've been doing. And so um, I like to think like we should always try to challenge ourselves to do the things that we know are good for us, but we really dislike. Right? So
Right.
for me, that's
Right.
running.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now I enjoy it. It's something that I honestly I feel like if I'm not running, I feel like my body is starting to get rusty again, creaky.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I've been doing it quite a bit. It's not to say it's been smooth sailing this whole time. I've gotten my injuries. I've got my knee issues. I continue to strength train and work on them. Um, these last few weeks, I've been doing less load because I've got a little niggle in my left knee that hasn't been going away. So I don't want to put more strain on it before I solve that. But these are kind of things we run into, right? Like problems, we work on
Right.
solving them. So despite all that, I love it. And I can say like I really enjoy running these days. I haven't done too much badminton since I focused on running.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to getting back into that soon enough, but after my knee is a little better.
Yeah, that's great. Great. That's a great example you're sharing.
Thank you.
So, what advice would you give with all the experience you have today to the young Vibol back then when you were like 20 something years and were starting your career?
Yeah. So much easier to look at this in hindsight, right?
Huh? Yeah, that's one of the benefits.
It's funny. I think uh, I look back and I had a lot of opportunities to go bigger. Um, I think the thing that trapped me was the, I guess, like I say, like this tunnel vision we get. Right?
Mm.
So back when I was younger and I was in college, uh, this was around the same time that Facebook had started. I'd say circa 2000, around that time. Um, Zuckerberg was still at Stanford creating his first Facebook. Um, I was
Mhm.
at UCSD creating the small Cambodian website called My Connection. It was
Mm.
meant to connect all of the Cambodian diaspora together and via the internet.
Mhm.
Same concept, community, online, and things like that. But that was narrowly focused on my thing,
Uh-huh. I see.
right? And I do look back and say, I wonder if I had like thought bigger about that. Like, where could
Uh,
that have gone, right? But it's a little too late for wonder now. So if I were to give
mhm.
myself advice from back then, I would say go for it. Go bigger. Don't think about just that small community. Think about the possibilities beyond that, right? And take the leap.
Uh, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. So I'll switch right now to the second part of this podcast in which I ask all my guests common questions, okay? So I'll start with please complete the following sentence. Purpose is.
Purpose is the fuel for a meaningful life.
Hmm. So, two or three words that help define your own personal purpose.
And clearly, like family, friends, community. These are all the things that really are formative in my development, my growing up. Um, but they're also, in reflecting back, giving back to these groups is purpose.
Uh-huh.
They're the ones that help me up.
That's beautiful. Please mention a guiding figure in your life, parent, teacher, mentor. Why this person, and What have you learned from them?
Yeah, and it's not one person, it's my parents, both of them.
Yeah, I thought you would
Yeah,
say that. Uh-huh.
for the qualities they bring to the table, for what they've done for me and my family, for never giving up on us, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, they're certainly the folks that I look up to the most, and the folks that I think about when things get really hard. And it's, yeah, nothing could be really right. Nothing could be really more difficult than that. So suck it up. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and my brother here in Brazil, we swim like in open sea in pools for over 50 years. And when things get rough, we always tell each other, shut up and swim.
Yes, yes. That's how I. It's not swimming right now for me. I started taking my first lessons last week, so
Really?
properly swimming. Uh, Preparing potentially for a triathlon. So
Right,
yeah,
right. That's what I thought.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing. So, do you have any unbelievable or very funny story you went through that you could share with us?
Um, hmm. Has to do with curiosity. I'll share one I did with a bunch of interns. Being my curious self at a young age. And my next older brother said he was very interested in electronics, and so obviously
Mhm,
that got me interested in electronics as well. And we had parts left over. I started learning how to put circuits together, building power supplies, building all kinds of um, circuits and things like that. And one of the things I learned was a capacitor holds charge. And so you
mhm,
charge it up and it holds the charge, and then and discharges to power the circuitry. We had this leftover capacitor from an old computer my brother had um, bought from a few years back. We had taken it apart, so this big, like 1 farad. It sits like 6 inches high with it was probably like 3 inches in diameter. So for folks that know electronics, this is a really big capacitor. It can do some real good damage. Um, yeah, I charged it up. I put a battery to the terminals to charge it up, and then I just decided to put a screwdriver across the terminals, and that thing blew up in my face. So it melted the screwdriver. So I
Did you get hurt?
no, no, I was fine. I mean, besides like my heart probably skipping a few beats. I learned very quickly that that capacitor definitely held a big charge.
That's a lesson for life, right?
I'll just say I never tried that again, and neither did I
Exactly.
try to touch the terminals with my fingers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could invite anyone in the world, living or dead, for a meal and a good conversation, who would they be and why?
Ah, jeez. Um, I like, I hope this is okay to say, but I'd love to have a conversation with God.
Mm,
And the place I come from is one of care. Like my upbringing has taught me to be very mindful and thoughtful about others. Right? As that's the community
mhm,
around me is what helped me. Right. But then the question that you know, like even given this day and age, all the things that are going on, I just want to ask, like, why do humans become so unkind to each other? Like,
mm,
right? And it's not just the things we see around us, but even like in our most vulnerable state, we become very negative, right? Whether it's like mental illness or other things. Um, and putting my obviously problem solving hat on, I just want to, and I still think about this question to this day. It's like, what do we do to eradicate this negativity that we're so aggrieved with? Right? It constantly hounds us, like, and I think that could be a very long conversation.
I would love to sit at the table and just listen there to whatever.
I'll be a part of the
Yeah.
conversation. I don't think it's for just any one person. I think it's for all of us, right? It's like,
Mhm.
how do we do better for each other?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
What is the best or the worst piece of advice you ever received?
Yeah. I still, it's an interesting thing. You love your family, and sometimes they give you advice, you know. And I think the I think the worst piece of advice that I've ever gotten, and I still get every now and then, is just let it be.
Let it be.
Yeah, just because I have this problem-solving mindset on, I talk about solutions, and the person's just like, "That just what do you think about that? Just let it be."
Yeah.
Like, "Well, I don't know."
Mhm.
I feel like that's pretty bad advice. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Maybe not always, but it's pretty bad advice. So that's the kind of thing that tamps down optimism, right, and hope, and a desire to do more, to be better. Um, the best advice, for me personally, is not for everyone. Is just be yourself. We didn't talk about this one earlier. I'd forgotten this note, but um, when I brought on a coach for myself, the one thing that I had to learn is I'm very technical. I'm very, let's say, I'm a lot of an introvert. I, I think internally I don't kind of express externally as much. Um, but my coach taught me how to be authentic, how to be myself, how to speak my mind, how not to think about what other thinks about, think about what I think about. Like that's something that tends to keep people from being their best, is what they're thinking about others are thinking about them. Right? So I learned to ignore that part. So maybe that was just like good advice. Just let them be.
Yeah.
In a way, I take it back what I said earlier about just let it be. That's one thing that's good. Just let the naysayers, let the other people believe what they want to believe, but believe what you believe and express that,
Yeah.
right, wholly and genuinely. And for me, that really enabled me to express all of these things that we're talking about, um, both to myself and to my team. And I think that really helped us to really understand each other.
That's very good. Very, very good.
Yeah.
What question would you have for me in this conversation?
Yeah. Well, you've had many conversations before me, right, with many other esteemed guests, and I'm just curious. Like, is there a common theme behind what it is that might be keeping folks in your audience from bringing out their best?
Yeah. Well, this is, as I say, a biased sample of individuals because everybody that has been on the podcast has somehow impacted me in a way that I felt like, okay, I would like to interview this person. The situation where we met uh, at boot camp and you started telling me about your story, I was like, wow. So I would say that the common thing is from this biased sample perspective is community.
Mm,
People that are not only looking uh, for things for themselves, but they are actually concerned, conscious, and active on giving back to their families, to their friends, to their communities. So a person that has a certain career is not only about the money, but the impact of that work to other people, members or customers or society. I would say this expanded um, notion of self from me to
Mm.
us is definitely a common theme,
Yeah, I
which has to do with my invitations, of course, but also to, I would say, this level of consciousness to try to be the change that we want to see in the
yeah,
world.
I love it.
So
I love it. Um,
that,
I certainly experienced a lot of that personally, and in the community that took us in early on when we came
mhm,
to America, and um, I think that's something that resonates quite well with me, and you know, I do feel and looking in my community around me, even today, like in our
mhm,
neighborhoods and our society, there's a lot of debate going on about what's better, what's worse for the communities, you know. But what I struggle to see enough of, in my opinion, are just people being around each other.
mm,
Yeah, I'll go for jogs in my neighborhood, and I'll see. So there are hundreds of homes that I run by, but I'll see one or two people out.
mhm,
Right,
yeah,
like everyone's so insular, and um, yeah, I think that's something that uh, over time, even with things like the internet, which keeps us in the house even more, right?
right.
Like it takes us apart from each other, and I think that's something I'm thinking about, and like I look at my local community, and and sharing my thoughts with my council member, and like, okay, I know what we're doing here. I know we're doing all these things, and like there's of all things that like I'm debating right now are like bike lanes, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Most communities don't want them, right? Because it's going to create more traffic congestion. That's a fair point.
Mhm,
We're also living in neighborhoods whose roads were built 100 years ago, so they were only built for a
yeah,
few cars to begin with.
yeah,
Um, but you know, I try to take a step back and look at the big problems. Like, oh, these cars are really taking us away from each other. They're putting us in a box. We're not able to talk to each other. Most people just rage at each other. you know, and so like a move back to bicycling actually doesn't sound that bad because it'll get people
mhm,
closer to each other. We're able to see each other, look at each other, talk to each other, even right. Like you're not in a car enclosed. So I don't know. It's an interesting community is important. It's absolutely vital, and the more we can meaningfully, I think, develop it, nurture it, right? And wherever it is that we are, whether it's a professional community or like I'm talking about local neighborhoods, I feel like that will lead to a better place.
yeah,
It certainly helped us. It helped my family being a part of a tight community.
yeah. How about a book
Mm. Th-
that's really important for
Yeah,
you? What book would
this
you
one's easy.
would you
It wasn't until later that I
ah,
came across the book. It came from my coach. But there's a book called Nonviolent Communications by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg.
oh, okay.
Um,
Uh-huh.
super helpful in everything we're just talking about. And
Mhm.
it's like community is about conversation. It's about common
Yeah,
meaning that we develop together. It's about agreeing, but it's also about disagreeing. But
right.
you know, I feel like the world continues to be polarized, right? Incredibly polarized, and we need to get back to being able to talk to each other, find common good that we can work on together, right? And so the ideas that Dr. Rosenberg presents, I think, are more important today than they've ever been. So that's a book that I enjoy, and I'd highly encourage everyone to be reading.
Yeah, it's a great book and a great point about what we're going through in the world
Yeah.
nowadays. Um, if you had magical powers for 1 minute and could change one single thing in the world, what would it be?
Um, I don't know if this would last, but I try to change it so that everyone has water,
Mm,
right? That we don't have to pay for it, because I think that opens the doors for so much more. Whether that be agriculture, that's the number one use of water for living, for right, just for our own sustenance. Um, but I think that's such a vital, overlooked resource. We kind of get used to not having it, especially in first world developed countries.
mhm.
Um, but and when I think about all the things that I could potentially solve for with a magical idea, I feel like water for everyone is probably one of the most fundamental, vital ones that would solve so many problems. Um, so yeah, strangely enough, going from tech down to just water.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a perfect lead to my next question. Not from an ego perspective, but more from a legacy perspective. For what you want to be remembered if you are by the next generations. What kind of legacy you wish you may help create?
Um, that's a great one. I think that what I've come to appreciate the most in my time leading teams is hearing back from team members that have grown and benefited from the ideas that we talk about. Is that we have our office hours and things like that, and then the culture
Sure.
code and all that stuff, and it warms my heart to know that there are folks on my team, especially when I left the company. I got a lot of um, outreach, uh, from team members that appreciated what we did and aspired to do, and I think for me, just knowing that there are folks that are taking these ideas and making them their own and then growing and
Mhm.
developing with them, I think that's enough for me.
Mm. Again, humility. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Uh, what made you go to boot camp where we first met each other?
Yeah, I'd always appreciated all of the insights that I developed from like the reboot newsletters and the web, what's shared on the website and the blog postings, things like that.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not my experience. It's not like even we do offsites, we do all these things with the team,
Hmm.
but they're very business focused,
Uh-huh.
right? And so I was looking for a place where I could stretch a little bit in terms of the softer side of leadership, right? This kind of empathetic quality that um, I honestly find hard to find within leaders around me. So I thought it was a good opportunity to find others who were thinking in the same way, were looking for more ideas, more connection with respect to the more empathetic side of leadership, and I certainly found it in spades at the boot camp. Uh, and you know, I, even to this day, I still think about the things that we talk about. As I'm obviously on my sabbatical, learning, thinking, right, evolving my thoughts, and so uh, I really appreciate like even having this conversation with you and being able to share. Um, what I've shared here, it's all kind of in line with the ideas that come out of that boot camp. And so, yeah, that's
Actually,
the reason I want to go is just to be with more folks that thought that way, to see how they're thinking, what they're experiencing, what they're going through, and to learn from everyone there.
yeah. Nice, very nice. Um, can you share a quote, Vibol, or a message that's important in your life as my final question?
Uh, you know, it's a good one. Um, I think that listen, I love the Nike slogan, "Just do it." It mean like it has so much more meaning for me as I've grown up. Like, and it's the meaning has changed over the years as well.
Uh-huh.
There are different meanings to it, but um, I do think like when it's hard to get up in the morning because right, it's been a bad day before, or you're heading into a bad day. Like that quote really comes to mind. Just get into it. Just do it. Right? And as simple as it is, it's one that holds quite a lot of meaning for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what made you say yes to my invitation to be interviewed here in because this bold Brazilian guy comes to you and say, "Hey, would you like to be my guest in a podcast?"
Yeah, yeah. No, I listen. I just appreciated that you were listening to my story and that you expressed so much interest in it. It's not often that you get to both share a story and find someone who's like super interested in it and then says like, "Hey, do you want to share the story with folks on my podcast?" It's, yeah, sure, why not? This is great.
Huh. Uh-huh. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah. This has been an honor, a treat, because it's an honor to your past, to the people in Cambodia, to your family, to your deceased siblings, and to the way you've been building your life. You really, really inspired me, and I felt like I have to learn more about this story and try to, broaden up this impact to other people, as many as possible. Thank you.
thank you, and thank you so much for having me and giving me the time and space to be able to share my family story. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Vibo. Let's keep in touch. And thank you that stayed with us for this episode. Thank you for your time, your active listening, and your audience. If you like this episode, please press like, make a comment, or share. Together, let's create deeper dialogue, stronger purpose, and more inspiration. See you guys soon. Thank you.